Hello, everyone. Today we are going to review some Python interview questions. We have a set of 50 plus unique questions that will help you in the interview process. So let's start. Before starting, let's go with the brief of what Python is. Python is a programming language which is developed by Guido von Rossum and was introduced first on 20th February 1991. It is right now the most used programming language in the world. Basically, the reason and the use cases of Python is applicable to AI and machine learning, where it is used the most. Going on with the definition, it's an open sourced free language having clean and simple syntax, so which makes it easier to understand and a first choice for students to learn because of the high interpretability of the language and being it easier to grasp. Python also supports object-based programming, and it's mainly used for doing general programming purpose. So it supports the classes object-based programming functions that we have. Okay, moving on. What are the important features of Python? So Python is a scripting language. So it is unlike other programming languages like C and its derivative. So it does not require a proper compiler to execute the codes that we write in Python. So it can directly execute as a scripting language as we have it. Python is dynamically typed, which means that we don't have to specify the kinds of variable when we are declaring them, like as in C or C++. We have to declare the data types int. With Python, we don't have to do that. We just can declare it like C is equals to 4. So 4 taken as directly as an integer, it will be directly specified as that variable. Python is well suited to object-oriented programming since it supports class definition, composition, and inheritance. So, although Python can be used to write scripts, it's primarily used as a general purpose programming language. Any programming language that is not in machine level code before runtime is called an interpreted language. So, whatever language that is not in machine level code before it is runtime. So, if we write a Python program, it is generally saved as a .py file. There is not conversion into a machine level code, and it's directly executed. So that's why we called it as an interpreted language. Moving on, what is pip 8? Pip 8 denotes Python enhancement proposal. It is a collection of guidelines for formatting Python code for maximum readability. Next question, explain Python namespace. In Python, a namespace refers to the name that is assigned to each object. Moving on, what is difference between a shallow copy and a deep copy? A deep copy creates different objects and populates it with the child objects of the original object. Therefore, changes in the original object is not reflected in the copy. So in short, deep copy, whatever is being created is is a copy where if we make changes to the secondary that assigned copy, it does not make changes to the original object that we have. Okay, contrary to that, we have shallow copy. So shallow copy creates a copy which is linked to that original object. So the changes that we do to the reflected copy of the object, it is reflected to the original object. So the syntax is copy.copy. So it creates a shallow copy. If we see how do we create a deep copy, we have to use this syntax. We can assign it directly, like x is equals to copy dot deep copy of that object. Moving on, what is docstring in Python? So docstring is a kind of a multiple line comment. So this is just an example of a docstring that we have here. Definition of a function, then the three parentheses that you see, and the closing three parentheses, the lines and the text between it is a docstring. So it's usually used to provide documentation to various Python module classes, functions, and methods. Moving on to the next question. The next question is, what are the common built-in data types in Python? It's a very important question. So the common built-in data types are numbers, as we call them integers. So they have integers, floating point numbers, and complex numbers. So when we say integers, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? And we have when we have floating point numbers, the float is a data type. So float means a decimal point, 7.9, 5.1. These are float. And then we have complex numbers. So in your 12th level mathematics, you must have learned that there are imaginary numbers, with an iota. So 3 plus 4i is a complex number that we have. So it's one data type in Python. Second is a list. So list is an ordered sequence of item. So this element, like the list as a data type, can data structure, we can say that it can contain many data types. It can contain a character, it can contain a float, it can contain an integer. So it has a lot of flexibility, we can say. And list is denoted by the square brackets. as you can see. Then another data type that we have is tuple. Tuple is also an ordered sequence of elements. So unlike list, tuples are immutable. So we will learn about mutability in the coming questions, or I can briefly tell about mutability here. Mutable means that this something can be changed inside the list if after it is defined. It is called as a mutable function, a mutable characteristic. When we say tuples are immutable, it means that once we define a tuple, the values inside of a tuple cannot change. So this 3 tool and 1, it will always be 3 tool and 1. We cannot remove 1, we cannot remove tool, or we cannot update 1 as 2. Whereas in a mutable data type, we can change, update, delete inside, use that function inside that data type. Coming to the notation, tuple is noted as a round bracket, and note down that it is immutable. Next data type that we have is a string. String is a characters of a string. They are declared with single or double quotes. Like Sana, she is going to the market. So single quotes, double quotes, we have strings out there. Next data type is a set. Set is a collection of unique items. So set is denoted by curly brackets, 789, 678. So this is a set. So this is a unique item. So if you have like 7668, so it will be saved in memory as 768 only. So there will be no duplicates inside the set. Another data type is a dictionary. Dictionary is an important data type if you want to progress more into the JSON format or structured format. So you should learn dictionary in detail. Dictionary stores key value pairs where each value can be accessed through its key. So if you see an example over here, one is a key and the apple is a value. So it is denoted as a key value pair. So this one as a key can have multiple values. Apple, mango, banana can be inside one. So it also has like possibility to add multiple data structures inside it. We can have a apple, and we can have an integer, we can have a float inside of this key value pair. Dictionary, we can change whatever is initialized inside a dictionary. The last but not the least is a boolean. Boolean values are just true and false. It's just a 0 1 switch. Coming on to the next question. What How is multi-threading achieved in Python? Multi-threading usually implies that multiple threads are executed concurrently. The Python as a language has a GIL, global interpreter lock. So this global interpreter lock doesn't allow one or more threads to hold the Python interpreter at a particular point of time, due to which their multi-threading is usually not possible. Okay, because it means that multiple threads are executed concurrently, but GIL doesn't allow the Python interpreter to do it. So GIL is a part of Python. So, but there is a caveat. Multithreading in Python is achieved through context switching. So, when we say context switching, it means that uh, it is different from multiprocessing, but it allows multiple processes to open across multiple threads. So, there is not multiple processing running on multiple threads, but there is, like, concurrently it's not running, but it is running in parallel. It's running, one process closes, other one runs. So it seems like multiple threading, but it's not actually multiple threading. Okay, moving to the next question. Are arguments in Python passed by value or by reference? So there is something in memory storage, and that's what we see is a data stored by value, passed by value or by reference. When we say passed by value, uh, so this means that the any changes within a function are reflected in the original object. If it is passed by reference, so there's an example that we have as like lists are mutable, and a new object is created. So in the first example, we only assign the value of one element I. So the output is 2 3 2 3 3 4 3 2 3 4. In the second example, we have created a whole new object, but the values 3 2 3 4 doesn't show up in the output. So it is outside of a definition of a function. So this is an example of passing by reference, and this is an example of passing by value. Okay, moving on to the next question. How is memory managed in Python? Python has a private heap space that stores all the object. The Python memory manager regulates various aspects of the heap, such as sharing, caching, segmentation, and allocation. The user has no control over the heap, only Python interpreter has the access. Next question. What advantage does NumPy array have over a nested list? NumPy is written in C so that all its complexity are backed into a simple to use module. Lists, on the other hand, are dynamically typed. Therefore, Python must check the data type of each element every time it uses it. Thus, NumPy arrays are much faster than list. So, when we talked about Python and C as a difference, so one major difference is that C, being a machine uh, interpreted language. Like it is a Python is an interpreted language, whereas C is converted to machine code and then executed. So machine code is faster when we execute than Python code, interpreted code. So so C is a low level language, which means that C is executed marginally, exponentially faster, not even marginally faster when we compare it to Python. So NumPy is written in C, which means that it is much faster than a nested list. Next question: what are pickling and unpickling? So pickling is a process when we convert a Python object into a byte stream. Pickling is also referred to as serialization, whereas unpickling is opposite of pickling. When we convert a byte stream to a Python object, it is also called as deserialization. So if you just created a neural network model, you can save that model into your hard drive. So when you save it into a hard drive, you say that you have pickled the model. And when you use that saved model and then use that as a neural network model again, you can say you are unpickling that model and you are bringing that model into a software program to use. So that's the main use of pickling and unpickling. Moving on to the next question: how will you check all the characters in a string if they are alphanumeric or not? So the Python has an inbuilt method. This is the inbuilt method that the Python language have, which returns if all the characters are alphanumeric or not. So there's an executable example that we have executed here: abcd123. This is a function that we have. Is al num. If it gives output as true, it means that it has an alphanumeric character. The string has an alphanumeric character. If this does not have an alphanumeric character, we say output is coming as false. Another way to do this, to check if the string is alphanumeric, we can use regular expressions. So regular expression also gives an output like re.match. So if you do not know about regular expression, please utilize it. It's a very good uh, text processing tool that Python language can utilize. So it's a boolean and we are passing in the regular match. If it is giving as true, it means that the string has alphanumeric character. If it does not, it means it is not alphanumeric. Okay, moving on to the next question: how do you merge elements in a sequence? So there are three types of sequence in Python: list, tuples, and strings. Every type of data type has a different kind of operation that we can perform. So if you want to merge elements in a sequence, when we see examples of a list, we can merge it directly as L1 plus L2. The output is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Tuple has similar. Okay. All of in this case, if we want to merge it, it is same for list, tuple, and strings. List, tuple, and strings. So we can directly add it against each other: T1 plus T2, L1 plus L2, S1 plus S2. It will give us directly the output. Moving on to the next question: how would you remove all leading white space in a string? White space means that there are spaces between, let's say this is a sentence. So there's a Python inbuilt function that is trip. So this will remove all the white spaces. For example, there is white space in this character input that we are having with Python. So when we are using stripping is strip, it is directly basically removing all the white spaces in that. Moving on, next question: how would you replace all occurrences of a substring with a new string? So the replace function can be used to replace a substring with a given string. For example, there's a string, uh, hey John, how are you? So we can replace this John with a capital J. So and this is the count. If you can see in the syntax, the old word, the new word, and the count. So count means like how many letters are there. So directly it can replace hey John, how are you, John? Count is telling the index. Which index do we have to? So if you can see the list, I have 0, 1, 2, 3. So John is replaced with John. Going on to the next question: what is difference between delete and remove on list? So delete removes all the elements of a list within a given range. Removes the first occurrence of a particular character. So here is an example. So list, this is an example list A B C D, and similar A B C D, we are deleting the elements 1 to 3. If we print it, we are getting A and D. So the elements second and third is removed. Similar, if we remove the list dot remove B, so we are specifying B as a separate element here, and it is removing it, and the output is ABD. Okay, moving on to the next question: what is the difference between append and extend? So append adds an element to the end of the list, whereas extend add the elements from an iterable to the end of the list. So if you see an example here, so we have a similar list 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. We are appending 4. So if we print it, so appended the element is appended at the last at the last of the list. If you're extending the list, it means that we have multiple elements that we want to extend. So 1 2 3, we are extending it by three elements, 4 5 6. So when if we print it, we are having 1 2 3 4 5 6. We could have added these, we could have defined this 4 5 6, and we could have also have added this 1 2 3 as we saw in the previous example. We could have seen 1 2 3 4 5 6. If we have a single element, we can append that element as well. So that's a difference. Okay, moving on to the next question. What is the difference between a list and a tuple? So we read about this mutability. I explained it. Lists are mutable, whereas tuples are immutable. When we see this example, like list, we can have addition or subtraction or updation once we have defined it. So we can see list is defined 1 2 3, and we are updating the second element as 4. So second is if we index it 0 1 and 2, so we are changing this 3 as 4. If we print it, we are getting as 1 to 4. So in tuple, we are defining the tuple by this curly brackets, and we want to change the second element as 4. We cannot do it because item object does not support item assignment. So tuple is immutable and list is mutable. Next question. How do you use the split function in Python? The split function splits a string into a number of string based on a specific delimiter. So delimiter is what separates the words. So for example, commas, CSV has a comma as a delimiter. If you see this sentence, this has a space as a delimiter. So the syntax is like string dot split. We have to specify what delimiter it is and the max. Delimiter is a character on which the string is to be split. The default, it is a space. As we said, there is space, and the max is the maximum number of splits. How many splits do we want? We have to specify this. Okay, here's an example. Red, blue, green, orange. It is a string and it is separated by a comma. So we are splitting that this variable and we are separating it by a comma. And the maximum characters number of splits is 2. So we don't want more than 2 splits. If we print the list, we are having a separated list by a comma. So you can see there was a single string. Now we have 1 2 3 4 strings. Okay, moving on to the next question. What are args and keyword args? So args is used in a function prototype to accept a varying number of arguments. It is an iterable object, and if you want to see the syntax, we define the function by arguments. Similarly, keyword args is a function prototype to accept the varying number of keyworded arguments. It is also an iterable object, and the syntax is similarly we have to put double star uh, to the syntax of this definition of this function. Moving on to the next question. In Python, functions are first class object. What do you infer from first class objects? It means that function can be treated just like an object. You can assign them to variable or pass them as arguments to other function. You can even return them from other function. It means function is just a variable. You can assign, reassign, or you can pass them as arguments. That is meaning of a first class object when we define it as functions. Next question. What is a numpy array? As we read before, numpy array is a fast array which is built in C programming language. It is a grid of values of all same data type, and it is indexed by a tuple of non-negative integers. So it's non-negative integers. What is inside a numpy array? The number of dimensions determine the rank of an array. So dimensions, if we have two dimension array, it means the rank is 2. The shape of an array is a tuple of integers giving the size of an array along each dimension. Okay, moving on to the next question. How can you check whether a panda's data frame is empty or not? It is fairly simple. If you want to see if it is empty or not, there's a direct syntax df.empty. So here's an example. If you just see this is an empty data frame, so df.empty gives a true object. Moving on, how do you get the items not common to both series A and series B? So this is a question that we have. So how do you get the items in series A which are not common in series B? So here is a code that we have for this. So we have two series, 1 2 3 4 5, and series 2 is 4 5 6 7 8. So we have union and intersect. These are the two solutions that we have. So union tells us what is common. Okay, and intersect tells us union is also telling it union, sorry, is adding these two. So 1 2 3 4 5, 4 5 6 7 8. So union is adding these two, and intersect is telling what is common. So if you see, this is series U is your series union, which is not series U is in series I. So we are this is a not equal to sign. So this intersection, if we see perform this, we'll get the output which is not common in series A and series B. Okay, next question. How do you keep only the top two most frequent values? Is it and replace everything or as others in a series? So we want to keep only most frequent values. Okay, so there's a code for this. uh, so we are defining a random numpy array, and we are making a series of the random integers. So this is the syntax of it. Moving on to the next question. What are decorators in Python? Decorators are used for changing the appearance of a function without changing its structure. Decorators are typically defined prior to the functions they are enhancing. To use a decorator, we must first specify its function. Then we write the function to which it is applied, simply pasting the decorator function above the function to which it must be applied. Okay, moving on to the next question. What is difference between pyc and .py file extension? The .py file are source code file for Python. The bytecode files for Python are stored in .pyc files, which are created when the code is imported from another source. The interpreter saves time by converting the source py files to .pyc files. So py is Python file and pyc is Python source code, Python code file. You can say bytecode file. Next question. What is slicing in Python? Slicing is a technique for gaining access to specific bits of sequence such as strings, tuples, or list. So we have a list defined. We slice it. We means we just like we slice an ice cream. We cut that ice cream. So we slice the data. Next question. How do you use slicing operator in Python? So slicing is a technique for gaining access to specific bits or sequences such as list, tuples, or strings. The slicing syntax. So this is the syntax. We specify the start, end, and the step. Uh, this step can also be skipped. Start and end returns all the sequence items from the start to the end minus one element. It means that elements from the end of the start or the element is negative I. The step represents the jump or the number of components that must be skipped. So this gives us starts. So if you want to go from one to end, so you just specify one till the end of the list, the index of that, and step means like how much jump it will make. So if you specify 2, it will slice it with 2 as a jump till the end. So it will just, if you specify 2, no, it will take 1 3 5 7 9, and it will ignore the index at 2, it will ignore the index x 4. So that's how the step works. And start and end will be just taking start to end. Okay, next question. In Python, how is memory managed? Python private heap space is in charge of memory management. A private heap hold all the Python object and data structures. This secret heap is not accessible to the programmer. Instead, the Python interpreter takes care of it. We read about this earlier also. Python also includes a built-in garbage collector, which recycles all unused memory and makes it available to the heap space. Heap space. Python memory management is in charge of allocating heap space of Python objects. The core API of programmers access the core API allows programmers to access to some programming tools. Next question. Explain Python path. Python path is an environment variable that is used when you import a module. It is when a module is imported, Python path is checked to see if that imported module is present in various folders. It is used by the interpreter to determine which module to load. Next question. Explain global variables and local variables. So, explain global variables and local variables in Python. So local variable is any variable that is declared within a function. So the scope of this variable which is declared within a function, it is only limited to that function only. Whereas global variables are declared outside a function, or we can say they are declared in a global space. So any function that is a variable that is declared outside of a function has a global scope, and they can be accessed outside that function as well. Okay, moving on to the next question. Is Python case sensitive? Yes. Along with like every most of the programming language, Python is case sensitive. Moving on to the next question. What is init in Python? So init is a constructor or a method in Python. So it is used to define the uh, used to allocate the memory when a new object is created. Next question. What is a Lambda function? Lambda function is a type of an anonymous function in Python. So this function takes as many parameters as you want, but the caveat is that Lambda function only is one statement. It's a single line function, anonymous, where we don't define that function. So that's a Lambda function for us. Next question is why Lambda function is used in Python. Lambda is typically utilized in instances where an anonymous function is required for a short period of time. Lambda function can be applied in two ways. Number one is assigning lambda function to a variable, and the second is wrapping lambda function into another function. Next question. How do we delete a file in Python? So to delete a file, we use a command as os.remove with the file name to delete that file. Next question. Explain join, split functions in Python. The join function can be used to combine a list of strings based on a delimiter into a single string. Whereas the split function can be used to split a string into a list of string based on a delimiter. Join to join and split to split. split. So there's a syntax, an example for you. So string, this is a string, and we are splitting it on the delimiter as a space. uh, Similar opposite to that, we are joining that into a string. Moving on to the next question. What are negative indexes and why are they used? The indexes from the end of a tuple or a string are called negative indexes. So if you want to iterate over the indexes in the tuple, if you put negative indexes, that will iterate from the last. Array of -1 denotes the array's last element that we have. Okay. Next question. How will you capitalize the first letter of a string? So we use camel casing. This is called camel casing. To capitalize the function in camel casing, there is already inbuilt function, that is capitalize function in Python. Okay, next question. What method will you use to convert a string to all lowercase? Again, there is a inbuilt library, inbuilt function that you can use. That is a lower function. So Python has a lot of inbuilt function that we can utilize, and mostly every task that we perform, there is already a function that we can use in Python. So lower is the function that we can use to make all the characters into lowercase. Next question. Why isn't all the memory deallocated when Python exists? When Python quits, some Python module, especially those with circular references to other objects or object references from global namespace, are not necessarily freed or deallocated. Python would try to deallocate or destroy all the objects on exit because it has its own efficient cleanup mechanism. It is difficult to deallocate memory that has been reserved by the C library. Okay, moving on to the next question. What are the different types of inheritance in Python? So there are four types of inheritance in Python: single inheritance, multiple inheritance, multiple level inheritance, or hierarchical inheritance. In single inheritance, the member of a single superclass are used to are acquired by a derived class. Multiple inheritance, more than one base class is inherited by a derived class. Multi-level inheritance is that D1 is a derived class inherited from base B1, while D2 is inherited from base 2 B2 class. It's an example. Hierarchical inheritance, it means that you can inherit any number of child classes from the single base class. Okay, moving on to the next question. Explain polymorphism in Python. Polymorphism is the ability to take various forms, that is known as, which is called as polymorphism. For example, if the parent class has a method name ABC, the child class can likewise have the method name ABC with its own parameters and variables. So it has taken form of a parent class. So Python makes polymorphism possible. Okay, moving on to the next. So these are concepts in OOPS, object oriented programming: polymorphism, inheritance, polymorphism, encapsulation. Okay, there are four basic uh, pillars of object oriented programming. Okay, next question. What is encapsulation in Python? Encapsulation refers to joining of code and data. Encapsulation is demonstrated through a Python class. Okay, moving on to the next question. Okay, I was telling about, let me complete the sentence. So the last statement I said, there are four object oriented concepts. So one is inheritance, second is polymorphism, the third is encapsulation, and the fourth, which we have not covered yet, I think, is abstraction. So these are the four OOPS concept. Moving on to the next question. What is GIL? We talked about GIL before. GIL stands for Global Interpreter Lock. It is a mutex that helps thread synchronization by preventing deadlocks, by limiting access to Python objects. So GIL assists with multitasking and not parallel computing. So GIL is the global interpreter lock that stops Python from parallel computing but assists with multitasking. Okay. Next question. What is pip? Pip is a Python installer package. Once you start with Python, this will be the library you will use the most to install the package. So you call this pip as a software or an installer package. It installs various Python modules. It's a command line utility that creates a unified interface for installing various Python modules. It searches the internet for the package and install it into the working directory without user intervention. Next question. What kind of joins are offered by pandas? So similar to SQL, pandas is a data frame library that we have in the Python language. So similar to SQL, pandas has the four kind of join: left, inner, right, and outer. Okay, next question. How are the data frames in Python merged? So the type and fields of the data frame being merged determine how they are merged. If the data has identical field, it is combined along axis 0. Otherwise, it is merged along axis 1. So axis 0 and axis 1, if I make it more clear, axis 0 means we are checking the database on the row wise scenarios, whereas axis 1 means we are checking the database on column wise scenario. Once you get more hands on, you will be briefed upon this as well. Okay, next question. What are the best ways to get the five first element of a data frame? So there is a inbuilt function head, pd.head, that you use. Or if you want to see more than five, you can specify how many elements you want, like df.head 5, or you can specify the data frame.head 10, so it will show you the 10 rows. If you want to see the bottom five rows, you can also specify tail, df.head ki jagah pe instead of head you use tail, and you specify how many items you want. Okay, moving on to the next question. How can you randomize the items of a list in Python? So to randomize an item, there is a library we use that is random, and there is a module that is shuffle. So shuffle shuffles the element inside of a variable. So as you can see in this example, it is being shuffled. Okay, moving on to the next question. What are the generators in Python? So generators are the function that return an iterable set of items, which are called generator. So function that returns an iterable set of items are called generators. Sorry, my bad. Okay, next question. How will you capitalize the first string of a letter? I think we have covered this before, but in Python, the capitalize function usually capitalize and makes all the letters camel case. Camel case is like capitalizing the first letter. How will you convert all the string to all lowercase? So the lower function converts all the strings into lowercase. Moving on to the next question. What is a lambda function? Lambda is an anonymous function, as we have read before. So the function can have any number of parameter. So an example of a lambda function is being shown here. A is a lambda function, and this x and y are two variables inside of this. And the operation being performed is we are adding x and y together. So it is being assigned to A. Okay. Next question. What is a self in Python? Self is an instance or an object of a class. In Python, this is explicitly included as the first parameter. However, this is not the case in Java, where it's optional. It helps to differentiate between the methods and the attributes of a class with local variables. The self variable in the int method refers to the newly created object, while in the other methods, it refers to the object whose method was called. Moving on to the next question. How do you find the positions of number that are multiples of 3 from a series? So to find the positions that are multiple of 3, there's a code that we have. So there's a pandas, we have created a series, random series from 1 to 10, 7. So we just use the modulo operator. So where the modulo of 3 is equals to 0, which means the remainder is 0, we are having as that as an output. Okay, moving on to the next question. How do you compute the Euclidean distance between two series? So Euclidean distance can be calculated using two ways, but we have we have the first way over here. So these are the two series that we have, uh, and it is being calculated by this formula: p minus q into square of 2 and square of y. And here is the other method that we have: np dot linear alg normalized of p minus q. So Euclidean distance, it is a distance between the lines, the segment between two lines that we have. So let's say we have this, we have one line. I cannot draw sadly, but we have one line, we have two lines. So there's a distance uh, between those two lines. Okay, moving on to the next question. How do you reverse the rows of a data frame? So to reverse a row of a data frame, this is the example code that we have. So we arrange, reshape, and we can directly specify it as -1, as we said, a negative index, and we print it. It is reversed. Moving on to the next question. Write a program to count the number of capital letters in a file. So here's the answer to it. We just open the file first of all. We specify the count as 0, and then we read the file, and we iterate. When we iterate over the file, we see there's a Python inbuilt function is upper, and if it is upper, this if will pass it on and add 1 to the count. And if we print the count at the end of this loop, we'll get the number of capital letters. Okay, moving on to the next question. Write a program to display the Fibonacci sequence. So Fibonacci sequence is a very interesting sequence. I think you should learn about this. I will cover this in the latest videos because we are in short of time. So we specify n is equals to 10, and then n0, n1. Just please go through the code. It's a fairly lengthy code right now. So it's the answer to display Fibonacci series in a Python code. Okay, moving on to the next question. Write a program in Python to produce a star triangle. So star triangle is a pattern that usually you will have in your college times, just as a fun activity. So we are using this code and it will be printing us a star pattern, a star triangle. Moving on to the next question. Write the Python code to check the given sequence is palindrome or not. So palindrome means like if you reverse, like for example, MOM, if you reverse MOM, you will get the similar word. So that's a palindrome. So this is reversing and checking if it is similar or not. This is the code for it. Moving on to the next question. How do Python arrays and list differ from each other? So the difference between arrays and list, as array is defined as a linear structure that is used to store only homogeneous data. Homogeneous means the data that is similar to each other. Whereas list is used to store arbitrary and homogeneous data. It means like it can store heterogeneous data. It can store multiple data types together. Like we can have integers, characters, floats inside a list, whereas array has all the similar data types. Array stores only similar data types, so it occupies less amount of memory. And list, as it contains multiple data types, it requires a huge amount of memory. The third difference is the length of array is fixed at a time of designing, and no more elements can be added in the middle. So length is fixed when we are initializing it, and we cannot add more elements. Whereas list is not fixed, and we can add items in the middle after initializing it. Okay, moving on to the next question. What is output of the following code? So we have x, a, b, c, d, and we are list mapping it. So the output is a, b, c, d in a 2D format. Okay, moving on to the next question. What is data abstraction in Python? In simple word, abstraction can be defined as hiding unnecessary data and showing or excluding necessary data. In technical term, abstraction can be defined as hiding the internal processes and showing only the functionality. In Python, abstraction can only be achieved using encapsulation. What is encapsulation? Encapsulation is one of the most important aspects of object oriented programming. The binder or wrapping of code and data together into a single cell is called encapsulation. Encapsulation in Python is mainly used to restrict access to methods and variables. Next question. What is polymorphism in Python? By using polymorphism in Python, you will understand how to perform a single task in different ways. For example, designing a shape is the task, and various possible ways in shape are triangle, circle, rectangle, and so on. So we have to design a shape and we can design it in different shapes. So that's polymorphism for us. Next question. Do in place swapping of two numbers. In place swapping means you are directly swapping it out. So Python as a language makes it possible. As the code you have in front of you, pq2, we can just directly in place swapping it, these two numbers. Next question. Reverse a string in Python. So reversing is fairly simple. We just add a -1 index in front of the list and it is reversed. Moving on to the next question. Check the memory usage of an object. So memory usage we can check using a system get size of the variable, and it just, for example, we can see x is an integer and it is having the memory as 28. Next question. Find the most frequent value in a list. So this is an example that we have. A test has a list of multiple numbers, and when we see test.count of max of test.count, so we see 9 as the output. Yes, 9 has the maximum number of instances in this list. Moving on to the next question. Check whether two words are anagrams or not. So anagrams, um, anagram means like something, a word is phrased differently, like this if we arrange it differently, do we get this word? So letters are arranged, if arranged differently, can it form another letter or not? That's an anagram for us. So this is the code for it, and it's fairly simple. So print is anagram, that's a function that we have defined, and it gives the output as true and false. For the first we get a false, and for the second we get a true. Moving on to the next question. What is difference between matrices and arrays? A matrix comes from linear algebra and is a two-dimensional representation of data. It comes with a powerful set of mathematical operations that allows you to manipulate the data in interesting ways. Whereas array is a sequence of objects of similar data type, and array within another array forms a matrix. So matrix is a higher dimension representation of arrays, like stacked up arrays. In higher dimension, we get matrices. Moving on to the next question. What is the difference between range and xrange functions in Python? So range returns a Python list object, and xrange returns an xrange object. So that's a difference. So with this, we are done with all the questions that we had for this series for Python interview questions. I wish you all the best, and hopefully we learn more with this. I'll curate more list of Python interview questions, and we can have multiple videos on this. Yeah, thank you so much. Bye bye.